that people are fighting for today.
The Coalition to Defund the Police organized Defund Fest, a one-day event including a series of panels and discussions. This discussion looked at the history of violence that community members experienced from policing in the neighborhood of Little Burgundy.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you all. I'm so honored to be here, to be able to share my story. Hopefully you'll feel my passion. Little Burgundy. My mother was raised in Little Burgundy. I used to come here as a young child and go to the NCC, where we created the first credit union to help with economic autonomy. We also had the Children's Theater Workshop. And so I learned from young that that was a space where changes were made. We definitely were oppressed. We were ignored. We were disillusioned with the system. But I always grew up knowing that there were safe spaces where people gathered, strategized, organized, and then started what I call liberty for us. As we continue, as Ted said, I've got 5 children. I've lived here for the last 30 years. When I moved back to Little Burgundy, it wasn't what I remembered as a child. There were lots of police. There were lots of drugs. There was lots of publicity from the media letting everybody know where to come and get their drugs. I used to bring my children to the corner, to the bus stop, and saw 8 fully armed police chasing a group of young black boys. And this is as I send my children off to school. Recognize we have to do something because this community is rich in history. A lot of firsts happened right here. And yet, we continue to be victims of racism, of exclusion. Our young people didn't want to go out on the corner and hustle, but they didn't have access to regular jobs. And so they had to go underground. They never brought the drugs in. They were the soldiers. Oftentimes, we saw police raiding and sharing the drugs with different drug dealers, allowing certain crack houses to thrive, killing some of their competitors. We watched as our youth became so influenced by that fast money. Other doors of opportunity were closed. Our educational system told them what they couldn't do. Yet, they hustled anyway. Now, we continue that struggle. I was just telling Shamba, it's the same struggle, just a different generation.
Thanks so much, Kelly. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about the late 80s, this notorious period of police racism and violence, the era of 3 cops that we all need to know the names of: Pablo Palacios, Batman, and Robin. So you want to say a little bit about those 3 cops and what the hell they were doing in the late 80s, early 90s?
Those 3 police officers, and I use that term lightly, were terrorists. They didn't just terrorize the so-called drug dealers. They terrorized our youth on the corners. I said, it's really funny how in Westbound, if you see a group of young boys, it's a fraternity. But if you see a group of young black boys, it's a gang. And they harassed, they murdered, they intimidated, they kicked down doors because they thought there was drug activity in there. They stopped people and harassed them, physically, brutally harassing them under the guise that they're protecting us. But they weren't. And it came out to light how corrupt those officers were. But we had to endure nightmares, gunshots. Imagine you're sleeping at night and all you hear are bullets like you're at war. We were at war, yet we didn't have any armor to defend ourselves except us.
Great. And Jason Chamba, Mr. Bergs will say a few more words about those cops, who was from his perspective as a slightly younger person at that time. But Kelly, the last question I want to ask you is, we're talking about resistance, and of course there were protests in the street in those years, very big ones, especially after the murder of Anthony Griffin in 1987, Marcellus Francois in 1991. But a lot of the resistance that you and some others were involved in wasn't the kind that gets the front page of the newspaper. And so I want to ask you about two things. One is the way that mothers would intervene when the police were harassing kids, and then secondly, the organization that you created for youth in those times.
A lot of the work we did was at our kitchen tables. We tried to figure out how we could protect our youth. One of the things that we realized is that we had to mobilize as mothers, because it wasn't enough for me to keep my child safe. I had to keep their friends safe too. How are we going to do that? We had no money, we had no space, but we had passion. And we really believe the importance of providing that safe space for our youth. So a group of us decided to start Youth in Motion, which is still in existence today. And the goal was really to provide a safe space for our youth to learn, to grow, and to see the sides of success. Funny. We started Youth in Motion in the basement of that building. Limited funding. So as a board member, I was also the cleaner, I was also the cook. I also helped teach them how to make banana bread. So we did a lot of organizing. We sought out different organizations that supported us because it wasn't politically correct to support us. We were moms, so we could say and do whatever we wanted, and we did. It only got us so far, though, Ted, I must say. Sitting at the table with the police officers, they really dismissed us. So a group of us decided that we were going to go and get educated. And so a couple of us went to McGill, got our degrees in social work, and then when we sat at the tables, they listened. We were saying the same thing, just using jargon and perhaps a different tone. And so I often told them, don't confuse my passion for anger. I'm not an angry woman. I'm a passionate woman. And I'm a mama bear. And any mother would protect their youth and their community. And that's exactly what we did. We created Youth in Motion. We went on to support Desk to Black Youth Network. And basically, I followed the trajectory of my children. First at Tyndale St. George's, which was instrumental in helping us form Youth in Motion. Then at Youth in Motion, supporting the 13 to 17-year-olds. Then Desk to Black Youth Network, 18 to 35.
Thanks, Kelly. So Youth in Motion, DESTA, two really essential organizations in this neighborhood that Kelly was involved in creating. And they really exemplify what we're talking about when we're saying defund the police and reinvest in communities. I mean, you need to have both, right? If we're not reinvesting that money in things that keep people safe, that support people, then we're not really talking about much of an improvement at all. But that example is a space of reprieve from the violence of the streets and from the violence of the police. Obviously essential. And so I want to pass the mic to Jason to talk a little bit about the police in those days, what it was like growing up in a neighborhood that was essentially occupied by Batman and Robin and Palacios.
Hello, hi. Thanks for having me, Ted. It's an honor to be here to talk. Like Ted said, I'm born and raised 1974, right here in Little Burgundy. And I always like to say that I'm a proud product of my neighborhood, of my environment, no matter the good or the bad. But in the times of growing up as a teen, like, you guys might have seen this stuff on TV, but I've experienced this in reality, in real time, with 3 corrupt cops that basically try to ruin our neighborhood and try to take it away from us. I mean, these cops sold drugs, would take us out of I remember specifically one night right here on Vinette in St. Antoine, we were coming home from a club. Pablo stops the taxi, not a car, none of us driving, in a taxi, pulls us over to the club, puts us on the friggin' car and starts just harassing us for nothing, like we're selling drugs at 3 in the morning, but yet we're coming from a club. And this is harassment we had to go through over and over and over. Us playing in Campbell Park at 8, 9 o'clock, they're telling us, and I'm telling you live, they came onto the basketball court with their police cars and started screaming over the microphone, okay, it's time to go home, it's time to go home, all you guys got to leave the park. It's 8, 9 o'clock at night. The harassment we had to go through with these cops, I don't wish this on my worst enemy. Like, police brutality and police racism back then, and still now. I ain't going to say it's as bad as it was back then, but back then, you couldn't walk the streets in a group of 4 without getting chased, without getting questioned, without getting threatened. We're going to take you down by the river. We're going to beat you. These are live, like, real things that happen to us. We don't say this to try and pick Burgundy to make it like the most unsafe neighborhood, but at them times it really was one of the most unsafe neighborhoods, not because of the residents. It's because of what police were doing to force residents to do certain things. But people don't understand that, and it all started in the root. Batman and Robin killed residents of Little Burgundy. It might not be documented, you might not see it, but the people of the neighborhood know what happened in the neighborhoods. People had to leave the city because they witnessed certain police brutality, police murders. If you were here in the 80s and you watched CBC News, you seen Pablo Palacios go on TV with CBC News and knock on a door and say, hi, pizza. But he's a cop going to do illegal searches in homes. This is documented. You can go look at this on CBC. But this is the upbringing we had to go through. And then they wonder why some of my peers, some of us, had to go sell drugs, had to go do certain things because certain situations were provided for us because we were too busy getting harassed by police. No opportunities were created equally for us because of our neighborhood, because of where we live, because of our skin color. It wasn't fair.
In terms of police killing people in the neighborhood, Osmond Easy Plesher spoke to CBC about what was going on in the neighborhood. A few days after his testimony about these corrupt cops appeared on CBC, he is shot and dead in Little Burgundy. The police say he shot himself. Nobody in the community believes that. There were witnesses who saw the police kill him, but ultimately the witnesses would not appear in court for obvious reasons when you've just seen the police kill somebody and try to cover it up.
Yeah. On that same situation, who he's talking about, we all knew him in the neighborhood. This guy was left-handed. Everybody knew he was left-handed. The cops, when he was dead, he had a bullet in the right side of his head. So they changed the story and said that Easy took the gun and shot himself like this and committed suicide. Is that logical? Is that reality? But no, this is what was fed to the media, that he killed himself when certain people seen the murder happen. And he was left-handed, but he shot himself on the right side of his head.
I just want to add one little story. You talked about Marcellus Francois. Lovely, lovely young black man. He was driving down the underpass at Guy. The police shot him dead and said it was mistaken identity. And then they released the tapes where they were referring to him as a nigger. So we all looked alike. He lost his life. Why? Because he was black and he was driving. And they didn't like to see our black men in cars. I don't think they still do. They stop you for driving under false pretenses and harass you. And it's trauma. Driving while black.
So then maybe we'll fast forward 10 years, and Jason can talk about this police operation called Operation Satellite. And what's important, I think, is that we talk a lot about the police harassing, brutalizing, and killing people who are involved in nothing. But we need to also question the police's actions against people who are breaking the law. And we're not saying that, everything should be tolerated, but we are saying that the police, even when they're targeting people who are breaking the law, there's something to question there. And so I'm wonder if Jason can talk a little bit about Operation Satellite, what that was about, and what, who are these people who were tossed in prison as a result of that?
Well, to be honest, like I said, I'm a proud product of my neighborhood. And I wasn't always on the right path and doing the right things of giving back to my community and getting involved in my community and trying to lead kids to do the right things and not the wrong things. But Project Satellite, basically, we were doing some illegal activity, and normal situations, police don't spend so much money on certain cases. But for some reason, they got funded $17 million to investigate us over a 6-month period. Where if we were living in Westmount, or if we were living in Hampstead, or if we were living in Cone St. Luke, I don't think the same energy would have been invested in the drug activity that was happening. But because we were black, we were young, they got an excess amount of money to investigate us and named it a Project Satellite. Long story short, for conspiracy to trafficking, I got sentenced to 5 years and 7 months because of the excessive surveillance and money that they got. My question is, all of the money that they're getting to investigate other situations, where's the money to put into the schools or to our kids down here who still can't go to school hungry, who are still going to school hungry, who can't afford to feed their families? We still got kids and families still on Christmas who still going to get fed or have enough money to feed their family on Christmas, but yet you have more money to take to investigate those who are pushed to do certain things. And I'm not excusing my actions, because I'll tell anybody selling drugs is wrong. But in a situation where I was put in my neighborhood, sometimes I feel I had no other choice, because certain opportunities were put in front of me to know what to do. I was never taught financial literacy. I was never taught certain things. There were certain opportunities that are there for us that we just didn't know because it wasn't given to us. If I could have went the right way instead of the left way, I'll tell everybody again I would do it all over differently. But I feel I had a choice either to stay hungry or try and feed my family. And I chose to try and feed my family. But I don't understand how police get so much money to investigate the black neighborhoods and the activities going on there, but you're not investigating the ones who are putting the guns into the black neighborhoods, the ones who are bringing the drugs into the black neighborhoods for them to be accessible. And I still think it's unfair to this day that every time you hear a situation in Little Burgundy, if it's positive, they call it Southwest, but if it's negative, they say Little Burgundy every single time on the media. So they're always portraying us in a negative way, and they don't portray the positivity that we're doing ever. It's always changed now. Now we're known as Southwest or Griffintown. I don't understand that.
Yeah, so $17 million, right? $17 million to send the police after a bunch of kids. What could that $17 million have been spent on instead? And I think I've learned from all of you, things that I've learned in books and that I've learned from other people too, is that the society's investment in black communities is the police. That's when we're willing to spend money in that community. We don't invest in anything else. And that's really different from like middle class neighborhoods where there's investments all the time, but it's investments in programs, in schools, in job opportunities. People have a lot of other choices because we as a society are putting resources into communities to give people opportunities. And so I'm going to ask a question to Svens, but I think all of you might have something to say about this. And so Svens, you work with black youth across the city. You work with black men in prison. You work with people who are released from prison. And so I guess my question is, how could we break this cycle where some kind of criminality occurs, they send the police in, send a bunch of people off to prison, never invest in anything else, and we sort of expect that the problem will go away. The problem doesn't go away. We just have this endless cycle of sending the cops in, chucking people in prison, returning people to their communities, often in a worse situation. So, if we had $17 million, if we had $500 million, half the current police budget, how could we spend that money in a way that would make communities stronger, safer, and more fulfilling for everybody?
Thanks a mil, Ted, and thank you for having me here. But if I could just backtrack a little bit, because I feel like it's also important for everyone to know that the culture that they had here in Little Burgundy, they've had it all over North America. Me, myself, I really resonate with both of you, and especially you, Shamba. Growing up, too, I was caught up in crime because of the reference points around me were the people that were successful in my neighborhood were people that were actually involved in crime. So I gravitated towards that. In my neighborhood, I could find a crack house everywhere, but there was no community centers. There was nothing really like that could actually appeal to me. And a lot of the negative policing that you mentioned, a lot of the same things happened in my neighborhood, growing up 16, 17, having police officers punch you in your chest because they feel like you have dope stored in you, having police officers tell me I'm not shit, you'll never, just being very negative, harassing me publicly, like doing things to try to humiliate me. And just even being falsely arrested. I've been arrested sometimes and I didn't even have drugs on me because they knew I was a drug dealer. I know it's weird to hear it, but I feel like one of the issues that we have with policing is when it comes to policing, even if I am breaking the law, you're supposed to be upholding the law. And I've been arrested. I've had a girlfriend at the time arrested for something we didn't even do because of things that I was doing before. That's another issue, but to fast track towards the money part, I totally agree. If they could just stop using this tough on crime type of attitude and focus more on prevention, there would never be young people getting involved with any of these things. Like in working with the youth that I've worked with, if you ask any young black male, what do you want to be? 9 times out of 10, he's going to tell you something related to sports, or he's going to tell you something related to entertainment. Why is that? Because those are the only 2 areas that you see black men prosper that is widely shared. That's constantly pushed down your throat. Okay, he's either a basketball player or some kind of entertainer. You get what I'm trying to say? So if you do not see yourself in a certain specific way, how are you going to realize that, you know what, I can be an advocate, I can do the X, I can do Y, I can do Z. And another issue with that is when it comes to Little Burgundy, or when it comes to Africville, or when it comes to Montreal North, or where it comes to Miami, Little Haiti, North Miami, all of these neighborhoods are dealt with in the exact same way. Over-policing, which gets more people in jail, which puts more people in a position where they can't get a job, which puts more people in jail. You get what I'm trying to say? I even had police officers kidnap me one time. And I was like 16. I was just in my neighborhood, just riding my bike. They literally pulled me off my bike, put me in a car, put me in a police station, and accused me of a murder that I had nothing to do with. That's the type of policing that they would have. And normally, what would they have to do? If I'm 16 and they know I'm 16 because they stopped me so many times, what would they have to do something like that? They would have to speak to my parents, right?
So how would you spend that money? What do communities need?
Man, if I had $17 million and I had the opportunity to spend it in the community, the first thing that I would do is I would build the biggest youth center possible. Why? Because location is very important. When kids are outside in the park, they're seen as a threat to a lot of different people. Just kids assembling in the park, they look like a threat. I'd have a community center, and I would copy a model that I seen in Chicago. Right in the heart of one of the most challenging neighborhoods in Chicago, I came across a minister who bought an old firehouse. And right outside, people are selling drugs, gangbanging, doing all type of stuff. But he put a community center right there, and you had kids learning how to DJ, kids learning how to do all of these different things that they're interested in. And because they were involved in something that they liked, they were not on the street because they had different opportunities. So long story short, I would find out what they're interested in and give them positive role models that could help them realize their ideas, because there's no youth that wakes up and say, hey man, I want to be a dope boy. I want to be a criminal. I want to take someone's life. I want to do something negative. No, everyone wants to be successful. They just sometimes do not see how they can get to that success without doing something wrong.
It's amazing. So I'll ask the same question to Kelly and Jason. You know, sometimes when we think, we say, we could provide safety without the police. And we're not even saying like no police at this moment. We're just saying that there are some things we could do to provide safety that don't involve the police. Some people are like, oh, you're just an idealistic dreamer. We need the police to crack down all the time and blah, 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 blah. It's like, you all know some things we could do. And so I want to hear both of you talk about what do we need to do to create safer communities where people can thrive.
Sven already highlighted we need safe spaces for our youth. But I'm going to focus on the parents of these youth. They've experienced trauma, and then they're raising children in a crime-torn community, full of love, full of hope, just not full of opportunity, not full of access to the financial opportunities made available to others. And so I would take that money and I would distribute it amongst the people with clear guidelines. You're going to increase your capacities. You're going to pay it forward. But you're not going to do it on a dime. You're going to do it with enough financial resources to make it possible. We're not looking for the Band-Aid. We're not looking for the gravy. We're looking for the meal. Not because I'm begging it, but our community deserves it. And yet we've been denied access for very long time.
I go do it to money. Honestly, if I had that 17 million, I'd build a school in my community and make it free. So the parents wouldn't have to worry about the struggle. You have free books, free activities, free everything. So you wouldn't have to worry about the struggle. But I take about $2 million out of that money and go to the police and tell them it's about time you stop bringing police from up north Quebec, from this place, from that place to come police our community when having no idea what that community is about. So I think if you go to the root of the problem first, it might help ease the tension of this relationship of communities with police. Police, I don't think are born with hatred in their heart for our community, but they're taught hatred in their heart for our community. They're taught racism. Not every police is bad. We have a police, Murad, who's been down here for like 25 years. Like, I went from selling drugs to shaking this guy and bouncing him when I see him in the street. Like, what's up, JC? Yeah, what's up, Murad? You good? He knows I changed my life. He knows I'm part of my community. He knows this, but for every one Murad, there's 1,000 Batman and Robins. Because we don't have nobody like Sam said before, our kids are only striving to be what they see. We don't have no kids saying they want to be a police officer because there aren't that many good police officers. There aren't no young cadets. I'm not talking to ones who go into traffic and stand up here and say, okay, I'm a cadet. How about starting these cadets going to Desta, going to Tyndale, coming into community, learning about the community, talking to the people. So right away you don't have that stigma that we are just all bad. Once you get to know the community, them same cadets might come back and police the community different. Might not change it, but it might start to change. But if we keep on doing the same process over and over and bringing these police that have no idea, the only black person to see was on BET, how you going to deal with them when you stop them? You're going to think everyone is a drug dealer or a rapper. And it's not fair. But that's what I would do. I'd take the money and make some schools so at least my kids or my grandkids can get taught financial literacy. I think that was something that none of us were taught. We have I would say Crosall is a historical street because at one time that whole street was black owned. Black owned. All houses were on Crosall Street, all black owned. Now, maybe 1, 2, 3. That gentrification is real. They kicked us out because they don't want to give us no opportunities. So what do you do with us? Get rid of us. Nah, I'm staying. I'm gonna fight. I'm fighting for my hood.
If I could comment on something that he said, something else that a lot of people need to realize, that when it comes to the police, a long time ago, like in the early 90s, early 80s or whatever, when you were a young boy, a lot of us got race cars. Sometimes you got police cars and stuff like that. And some of us may have had like aspirations to be a soldier or a police officer or something. But right now, the idea of being a police officer, I just don't see what police officers defend. They don't really have that profile of someone defending the community, protecting and serving. Whereas when it comes to a firefighter, no one has beef with firefighters. No one has beef with them. Why? Because they're there to really protect and to serve, and even risk their lives, and I'm like, I just don't understand, like, this attitude in policing where they just have to get so violent. You get what I'm trying to say? With people that don't have the same amount of power and don't have the capacity to protect themselves the same way.
And for some reason, might sound hypocritical, but all of the shit that we went through, we have it easy compared to what they were going through in the States, where people are just getting massive, communities are getting wiped out, getting just erased. You got situations in Washington where they were poisoning the water and all of this. So all of what we've been going through here, I always try to take the positive of every negative situation, that somebody else got it worse. But if somebody could see us fighting for that change, maybe it might inspire somebody else to fight for that change. Maybe it might. I'm honestly shocked I don't see no feds here now, because I was expecting to see all kind of cops here now, like just to see what we're going to discuss, what we're trying to do. And I don't want them to think that we just want to defund you because we think you're dirty cops. No, we want to defund you because you're using the money in the wrong way. You're not giving us the opportunity to even chase our dreams. You're trying to cut our dreams short because you're too busy policing us. And I'm not saying the guys who are selling drugs, the guys who are shooting, shouldn't be policed. Of course they should, because I want my community to be safe for my kids and for my grandkids. Simple. But the 10 kids who aren't doing nothing, and you're still, to this day, last week, because me, like I said, I'm from my neighborhood. I go every day after work. I sit in my neighborhood and I relax because I feel safe and I love my neighborhood. But I still see the cops going down the street slow, stopping by the park. There's kids sitting down. It's intimidation still to this day. But yet you still will have the odd cop that will come, because now I'm considered the old head, but they'll come see us older guys sitting at the park and wave, but yet go to the kids and still intimidate them. So what do you think that's going to push them to do? I'm not going to say it's right to go break the law, but now if I see an 8-year-old kid who's afraid to say hi to a policeman, an 8-year-old kid, there's something wrong with the policeman. As a kid, now I'm thinking about it, I went to NCC Elementary School. They closed it, I think, what was it, 1977, 78? But in the yearbook, my goal, it says, I want to be a policeman when I grow up. How ironic is that? And I swear to God on my kids, that's what it says. I want to be a policeman when I grow up. Maybe I wanted to have that change from early, I don't know. But you would never see that now. You would never see a high school yearbook saying, yeah, I'm going to out west to go become a cop. No, I don't see no young black cadets. I don't. And it's scary.
I have to.
Just 1 second. Funny, last week we had Little Burgundy Festival. All the organizations were here, the police were here. Alex, one of our fabulous community police officers, looks for my son. And he says, Devon, when are you going to join us? We need you. And I said, hell no, are you crazy? I'm not worried about him getting in trouble with the community. But the police officers will eat him up. And then something would happen. So as much as my son is involved and really a mediator, We don't want that officially known. I don't want him to lie in the bed with the police because, unfortunately, not only will you catch crabs, you might not wake up.
Man, see, you just gave me two avenues. So the first thing I wanted to say, and with regards to what he said, when we were growing up and when you were growing up, all of the movies about the police were positive. You know, if you think back to like Lethal Weapon and all of these type of movies, cops were doing good things.
Mod Squad in my day.
You know? And now when you look in the media, you constantly 24/7 catch cops doing bad things. You feel me, right? So why would I want to become a cop? And then on another level with what you just said, I remember I was at a community event and some cops that didn't know me, they approached me and I was like, why don't you become a cop? We need you. And I told them, so let me get this straight. Your house is messed up. Your house is messed up and in disorder, and you need my help to fix it. Why don't you fix your house, meaning your policies and your culture, and maybe invite me? But why is it the black person's responsibility to help the police fix anything? It's your culture and it's your policies that are messed up. And I didn't create this mess. You created this mess. You get what I'm trying to say? And you kind of like put me in a position to kind of stay in that mess. And another thing that I want to say is this lie. You know how they say crime doesn't pay? That's one of the biggest lies ever. Crime does pay. It keeps police people employed. It keeps the correctional system that's like a $3 billion industry in Canada, keeps all them people employed. So crime does pay. It just doesn't pay us.
Oof. Nice. So we're running out of time. I want to give time for one person to ask a question from the crowd. If anyone has one that they want to ask, you got the opportunity.
First of all, thank you so much for your time. Going back to you were talking about rebuilding the relationships between cops. So let's say this transitionary period, let's call it, before defunding fully. How do you guys see rebuilding that relationship could look like as a transitionary point? Because something that came to mind was, let's say you want them to get to know and build that relationship with their community so they care more. I think I would feel almost scared. What if they get to know me too much? They know too much. They conflict of interest. How could that work? Again, just your opinions on that.
Great question, because at the same time, it's a double-headed sword, just like you said, because we don't know the intention. We don't know the intentions. Yeah, we ain't gonna know the intentions of the police, because again, actions speak louder than words. So if somebody is gonna say, "Yeah, I want to come participate in the community," and you show up for Burgundy Festival, then I don't see you again next year to a Burgundy Festival. I could judge by your actions that you're not involved. At the same time, that person who will show up for the community barbecue or any events that are happening, just come in, hey, how you doing? I'm so-and-so, I'm the new officer, I'm this and that. Again, like you said, we can embrace them, but you're not going to give up all the information at the same time. You're going to also feed them out. But again, it's a double-headed sword, but we have to be willing to try and take the intentions of them trying and take our own judgment on who got the right intentions and who don't, because everybody might have a program behind what they really want to do. And again, we're used to it so much that it wouldn't surprise me, so the guard would be up. You got to always tell them so much you can know, but why do you want to know this? What are you willing to do to change so this situation to start? But not come in and be like, okay, so who's the leader? Who are the drug dealers? Who are this and that? Let's get rid of them. It's not going to work that way. How about, all right, so where can we start helping the kids? Where can we prevent the kids from staying out of the streets after 11 because they got nowhere to go? So we can start building a relationship with them. Maybe we should go to DESTA, and maybe we can help integrate with the inmates that are coming home. Show them that, okay, the road ain't going to be so hard. Look, you have some police are even trying to help you. Stuff like that. But when you don't show your face at these institutions, only when there's a problem, it's never going to change. They got to make that jump start too.
dialogue is so important. We need to be at those tables, not after the fact, but while they're strategizing. Worried about, will the police know too much if we let them get too close? I'm willing to risk that because their perceptions right now are not helping us. So they need to know the real deal.
For me, for there to be genuine, real relationship with the police, it has to start with accountability. That's the number one thing. And what I mean by accountability, it means that the community should be in a position to hold the police accountable. I'm tired of the police policing themselves, where when they say, you know what, we'd like you to come in and we'd like you to review what just happened. And you tell us what happened on this tape. And not for them to just find some kind of way to, find some kind of way to make whatever we see reasonable, or you get what I'm trying to say? The word is not coming to me right now, but you get what I mean? Like that, for me, it starts with accountability. You can't just keep hurting someone in a relationship and then feel like I'm supposed to come around your terms to help you fix it or build this bridge. You get what I'm trying to say? Me, I need to see that you're accountable, and that means the communities are in a position of power to dictate what's going on with the police. You know, to have the police in a room and we basically tell them, look, we don't want you on this block no more. You know, like, this kid got stopped. Who do we talk to? Like, just to give you a small example, I remember working with one person. He was a community worker. This guy had the police come into the community center to talk with the kids about policing and knowing their rights. Within 2 months later, this guy was going to his own baby shower. So he goes to the barber shop. He pulls over his car. He's walking from his car to the barber shop. They stop him. And they're like, can we have your ID? He's like, what do you need my ID for? And as they continue to keep badgering him, they charge him for not producing his ID. And they tell him, look, the ticket is not going to be that big. What does he do? He takes the information that he received from this community police BS thing, and he goes to the police station, and he's like, I'd like to make a complaint. Where do I get this form or whatever? They told him, we don't know where the form is. You need to go online. You get what I'm trying to say? And he pursued the city of Montreal for about 9 years, and he won in court. You know, he was actually one of the witnesses in the case with Chris Luamba against the Attorney General of Quebec. I was also a witness in my friend who's not here, Amanda Maxwell. All this to say, if there's no accountability, and this is what really hurts the police, accountability. You feel me? If that's not involved, I don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, they're allergic to that concept. I hear, Kelly, you're talking about reparations. You know, these communities have been underinvested in for generations. The only investment is the police. Give money to people to make the communities that they want. Jason, I hear you talking about, you know, a school that functions, you know, so people know when they send their kids, they're going to get a good education.
Not Eurocentric based.
No.
A diverse curriculum.
Yeah.
Where we see all.
That's some of that woke stuff. You know, we got to fight for that right now. And accountability. I'm just closing up here, but I remember talking to a guy who you all know, he grew up in the neighborhood. I won't use his name, but he said, you know, Pablo Palacios, Batman and Robin, I'm so glad those guys' asses are in jail. And I said, they're not in jail. He said, that's impossible. That's impossible. And unfortunately, it's you know, it is impossible to put even these cops who were running drug operations, who were harassing everyone, who killed people, they finished their career. Palacios retired with a full pension, and now he's got a second career doing security for the St. Lambert airport. So he's getting 2 salaries right now. Guy finished his career, had a very nice career. So accountability, we're a long way from that. And so, you know, I just want to thank the three of you so much for spending time with us today to talk about the work that you've been doing. And thank you for these decades of work that you've done to, you know, support the community, keep that community together, create safety and opportunities for people in a neighborhood, that's constantly assaulted by the police and not given a lot of chances to do everything. You've had to fight for everything that you've done. And I think we all owe you, tremendous gratitude. Thank you. Thanks so much. And so we got a little break, and then we're back here in about 5 or 10 minutes for harm reduction and drug decriminalization. At the other area, we have against the control and surveillance of migrants, starting at a little after 2 o'clock.
That was so nice. That was sweet. It was.